So you guys, today's video is a life update and me answering all the questions that my Instagram followers have asked me about what the heck has happened to me in the last few months, what the hell has been going on, and where the hell am I and why am I here? I don't know if you guys are going to be interested in this video. This video might get 15 views, but it was just going to be way too long for me to do it on Instagram, so here I am. In case you're wondering and in case you're concerned, right after this video I am headed straight back to my normal content, helping you guys feel amazing about yourselves. Where do I even start? Seriously, these last few months have been traumatic and I still feel like I'm trying to process everything in my brain that has happened recently. So, I just don't even know where to start. We moved to Spain in October, right after Axel, my son, turned 2. We had the intention to go and live in Spain for 4 or 5 months to kind of trial it out, see could we make it work for us, could it feel like home, because we live in Ireland. So my fiance Darren, he's Irish, my son is half Irish, and we love Ireland, but we just could not deal with the weather anymore. I'm Australian, I was raised in Australia, I grew up in Australia, I grew up on the beach, in the heat, eating mangoes and passion fruits, and I had a tan, and all those things I want for my son. I want him to have a similar childhood in that sense to what I had. So we were like, Australia is so far away, it's going to be such a huge move, let's just try Spain. Spain is hot, it's in Europe, we'll give it a go. So we went over to Spain. It was absolutely beautiful. What a beautiful country, what a beautiful culture, what beautiful people. But it just didn't feel like home, and we tried to make it work. We tried to make it feel like home and it just didn't. It actually made me more homesick for Australia because I think I was trying to make Australia happen in Spain, which is really weird. I was really homesick. I was like, Darren, I just want to go home. I just want to go back to Australia. And he was like, fine. We booked tickets. And that was finally the decision made. Then my dogs got in a brawl. So my dogs were staying at our house at home with my mother-in-law, Darren's mum, who is their grandmother. She was looking after them. They're all super bonded. She adores the dogs. They adore her. They are so spoiled by her. She was looking after them in our house while we were in Spain. And on the last day before we were meant to come back from Spain, our dogs got in a brawl. 2 of them did. These 2 dogs have never really liked each other. All our dogs are rescues. Our 4th dog, Rocky, he didn't get along with our oldest dog, Striker. They just never really liked each other. In fact, it was Striker didn't like Rocky, the youngest dog. And we try really hard to keep them separated. So in our house, we have a gate system. So the 2 collie dogs are separated in this part of the house, and then the 2 older dogs are separated in this part of the house, and it works. Well, it's annoying, but it works. Unfortunately, on the last day, Rocky, the big, young, bouncy collie dog, got out of his gated enclosure and went into the old dog's part of the house. The old dog didn't like that, took offense to the young dog being in that part of the house, and nobody saw what actually happened because my mother-in-law was actually outside playing with the other 2 dogs. This is what happens when you have 4 dogs. They're an absolute handful. Anyway, these 2 dogs got in a brawl. My old dog was badly injured, so we had to fly straight back from Spain to Ireland instead of getting the boat. So we had to leave our car in Spain, just drop everything and just emergency fly essentially back to Ireland and get our dog to the vet and get him operated on. Thank God, thank the Lord, he is fine. He made a full recovery and he's good as new. Even though he's 17 years old, he is such a sturdy and he's fine again. Then a few weeks after that, one of the dogs, and I'm not going to say which one because I really don't want to promote breed discrimination. That is something I really hate because all dogs are different despite their breed. One of our dogs bit my son. And again, this gating system in our house has always worked. Like I said, we've got the 2 big dogs separate from the 2 small dogs, and we've got all the dogs separate from my son because as much as I love dogs, and I love dogs, hence why I've got 4 rescue dogs, I have always said, and I fully believe, that you can never trust any animal with a child. Because animals can't talk. Dogs can't talk. They can't tell you if, the kid's pulling their tail, if they're pulling their ears, if they're in pain, if they're not feeling well. Dogs can't talk. And the only way they can communicate with you is by their actions. So we have always kept our son separate from the dogs. But on this occasion, the gate was left slightly ajar. So these gates, they're super tall gates. They're not small baby gates. These are heavy duty pet gates. The gate was left open a centimeter. It essentially didn't clip into place. And Axel, my son, has walked into the kitchen where one of the dogs, I don't want to say which one, was there, and this dog has, I suppose, gotten a fright and bitten Axel, gotten a shock himself, and run away. And again, I absolutely thank the Lord, because I have prayed so hard over this, that my son was fine and it wasn't worse than it was, but it was bad. So my son had a wound under his eye, and because of the location of the wound, it was really dangerous, because if it got infected, which it did get infected, it could lead to so many other, bad infections that I'm not even going to go into, because it's just going to spike my anxiety. So we had to race my son to the emergency room. They couldn't deal with it, so we had to then go down the other end of the country where they had a plastic surgery team, and my son had to be put under general anesthetic. They had to clean the wound and stitch it up. He was on heavy antibiotics, and if you guys know me, I'm all about holistic living. It just it's caused me so much anxiety. But the main thing is, and thank goodness for good hospitals and doctors and medication, because I don't even want to get into it because it's just gonna make me cry. So again, thank the Lord, my son is fine. He as well is a hardy little fella. He only has a tiny little wound under his eye, a little scar. I don't think it's going to scar very badly. Like I said, the wound itself was only small, but just because of the location being so close to the eye, they were worried about, infections and all that horrible stuff. So he's fine. I just need to work on building back his microbiome now, because antibiotics can really affect the microbiome. So that is what I'm focusing on now. That's what I'm researching and reading all the books and diving headfirst into. That happened 4 weeks before our flights to Australia were booked, and we couldn't exactly change them because Australia right now is essentially a closed country. It's really hard to get in and it's really hard to get out. If you want to leave, you actually have to apply for an exemption from the government to actually leave Australia. And for Darren, my partner, to enter Australia, he had to apply for an exemption to get in. We tidied up our house, we got everything in boxes. The majority of our stuff is currently on cargo ships being shipped to Australia. It'll take 3 months for our stuff to get to us. So basically all we have is 3 suitcases, and our lives are in the suitcases. We had to leave the dog that bit my son behind, because we both said it could have been so much worse, and this dog, now that he has shown that he is not suited to being around children, he can't be around children. So the options was either put him down, which neither me or my partner could emotionally do. The other option was to let him live with my mother-in-law, who has no children. She doesn't ever come into contact with children that's not our child. So he is now living with her. So that was actually really sad and really heartbreaking, because obviously we love this dog. We've owned him for so long, we absolutely love him, but we just couldn't ever risk that happening again, essentially. So the rest of the dogs we have flown over to Australia. They are currently in pet quarantine in Melbourne. They get out in 2 days' time. That is essentially bringing you guys up to speed with what the heck's been happening and why I've been so flaky on YouTube over the last few months. I'm the kind of person, I'm not that, that type A personality that can kind of shut off their brain and they can work through anything and put on a brave face and a happy face and pretend everything's fine. I'm not that person. If I'm feeling anxious or depressed or something's going on in my life, I cannot hide it and I cannot act. I'm not a good actor. And so when I'm feeling shitty, or when I'm just want to cry, or when I'm feeling anxious, and honestly guys, I feel anxious 95% of the time. I'm actually going to start hypnotherapy soon, because I've tried everything to get rid of my anxiety. I've seen psychotherapists, psychologists, counselors, medication, nothing has helped me. So I'm going to try hypnotherapy next, because I really feel you don't need to live that way. You should always seek help. So I'm going to try something new. Anyway, I digress. Basically, when I'm feeling shitty, I cannot get in front of this camera and talk to you guys, because I can't talk to anyone. When I'm feeling shitty, I don't even want to talk to my family or friends, let alone hundreds of people that might watch my YouTube videos. I just can't do it. I'm just not that kind of person. I wish I was that kind of person, because I've had to turn down so many jobs and I've had to turn down so many opportunities because I'm just not in a good frame of mind, and I can't pretend. Do you know what I mean? I don't know if any of you guys are like that. Anyway, so yeah, that is bringing you guys up to speed on what the heck has been happening, and basically why I've been so flaky here on YouTube. I just thought I should probably get on here and explain myself, because it's not that I'm lazy, it's not that I don't value you guys or value your time or like appreciate you subscribing to me or watching my videos. It's just that when I'm not feeling good, I just can't get on here. Like, I just can't see or speak to anyone. Anyway, on Instagram, I asked you guys, did you have any questions that you wanted me to answer? And there was actually, there was a ton. So I'm gonna try and answer as many as I can. Okay, so many people asking what happened to the donkeys. I did actually address that on Instagram in my stories and Q&As a few times, but I guess obviously not everyone's on Instagram at the same time, and so loads of people wouldn't have seen that. So I'll just address it here and now, so in case anyone ever asks me again, I can direct them to this video. So we had donkeys. We had a whole family of donkeys, and essentially we never set out to become donkey owners. Like, that was a really random thing. When we moved back to Ireland in 2017, we were renting a house in rural Galway from a lovely farmer, wonderful man. We absolutely loved our landlord, and he was a beef farmer, and he had donkeys on his land, so that when there wasn't cows on his land, the donkeys essentially lived there all the time and they would keep the grass down. We realized quite soon after we moved in that these donkeys weren't actually, you know, being actively looked after. So like, they didn't, no one was cutting their feet. And when it comes to donkeys, when they're on soft ground, if they don't get their feet regularly cut, like their hoofs, their feet can start to like overgrow and turn up to their legs, and that can like cause so many health problems for them. It soon became clear that the person who owned the donkeys wasn't actually going to sort out the hoofs and the issues that these donkeys had, because these donkeys didn't really have any care at all. And so me and Darren, we took it upon ourselves to get a farrier, paid for a farrier to come out and cut all the donkeys' feet. And this was a huge mission, because these donkeys, like I said, they hadn't really ever had human contact, essentially, because we were right out the back arse of nowhere in Galway. They didn't really see people. And so these donkeys were wild. Like, they're not the kind of donkeys that you can just put, you know, a headdress on and like walk around or sit on or pat. These donkeys were like terrified of humans. It was such a huge ordeal trying to catch these donkeys in the first place and then hold them without getting yourself kicked, because if a donkey kicks you, you will die. Like, they are so strong. So Darren and the farrier John would like have to hold the donkeys, and I'd be there trying to like feed them ginger nut biscuits or carrots, trying to keep the donkeys calm, while we got their hooves, which were so overgrown, down to like a more manageable size. And that was bloody expensive. That cost like almost €1,000 the first time, and we aren't rich people. And so for the entire time that we lived in that house, we took it upon ourselves to take care of the donkeys. So when it was the hot weather, we bought a big tub. We were giving them water because they had no water. We were getting the farrier out on a regular basis every few months to keep their hoofs at a more manageable level for them. Then when it came time for us to move out of that house, we were moving up to Donegal, which is like 3 hours away from Galway, which is where Darren's from. We were like, we can't just leave the donkeys there, because who's going to look after them? They're going to go back to square one. So we ended up buying the donkeys off the owner, which was, again, so expensive. And like, looking back, I'm like, that was not a smart financial decision, because we didn't have a lot of money. The money we did have, we took out of our savings to buy these donkeys, but we just knew that we couldn't leave the donkeys there, because who was going to look after them? Took the donkeys up, and the donkeys were so happy there for a long time, a good few years actually. And then, if you guys haven't seen this video, watch this vlog, it'll explain what the heck happened. Some kind soul decided to call the Department of Agriculture and report me, Stephanie Lang, for cruelty to donkeys. And it's still to this day, I'm just like, what the actual fuck? Like, so I got a huge fright from that, because I was like, is someone out to get me? Like, why is someone going to so much effort to have my donkeys impounded? Because what happens when donkeys get impounded is that they get put down. If they get seized by the Department of Agriculture, they don't get nicely rehomed, they get killed, essentially. And I got a huge fright, because I'm like, why does someone hate me this much that they're going to all this effort to get my donkeys taken? Like, I try so hard to give these donkeys the best possible life that I can, even though I never actually set out to be a donkey owner. And then once we seriously started thinking about relocating, whether it be to Spain or Australia, we were like, we can't keep these donkeys anymore. Like, we cannot afford to ship donkeys to Spain, let alone Australia. Like, it would literally cost hundreds of thousands, if not €1 million, to ship donkeys from Ireland to Australia. As it is, simply to ship my 3 dogs from Ireland to Australia, it cost more than my house deposit. And that was a heck of a lot of money. So I could not afford to ship 5 donkeys from Ireland to Australia, nor would I want to, because that would take them months of being on a ship, and it just would be cruel. So I got in contact with my friend Danny, who runs the Donegal Donkey Sanctuary. Guys, if you're in Ireland, please go and visit the Donegal Donkey Sanctuary. They have so many happy donkeys there. It is such a joyful place. They've got this gorgeous gift shop where you can buy like donkey merchandise. I contacted Danny. I was like, look, Danny, someone's out to get me because why is someone trying to get my donkeys impounded? And also, we're going to relocate to Australia. I was like, can you take the donkeys? It was luck of the moment. He had space because he'd had some donkeys rehomed. He took the donkeys. And I'm so grateful to him for taking our donkeys because I cannot imagine a better place for donkeys to live than the Donegal Donkey Sanctuary. It is like heaven on earth for donkeys. Like, they get out and they play with all these other donkeys. It meant that our donkeys weren't going to be secluded just to their little family unit anymore, but they could play with like other donkeys, and they just have like the best shelter and like the best life there. And Danny actively works to rehome donkeys. So he takes in like donkeys that are abused or donkeys that are neglected. The donkeys went to the Donegal Donkey Sanctuary and we cried for like a week afterwards because we missed them so much, but we knew that it was the best place for them. And Danny will, in time, if he thinks it's appropriate for them, will rehome them to like vetted people. So like he goes to so much effort to like vet these people that want to take donkeys. So like they have to prove that they have adequate like housing for them and fields and know how to look after donkeys and all that jazz. Okay, so a lot of people are asking like, do we think Australia is where we're going to settle long term? I think, well, never say never. So me and Darren, we're the kind of people like, I think we find it hard to settle. It's not that we're like travelers and that we like to travel around a lot. It's just that Darren being from Ireland and me being from Australia, we are both from like opposite sides of the world, and we have family in both of these countries, friends in both these countries on both these sides of the world. And it's like, I wish that we could like bring Ireland and Australia and like squish it together. That would be like heaven on earth for me. So essentially, hopefully when the world goes back to normal, if it does, we will live in both countries. But anyway, I love you guys and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.